Shabbat Shalom. Hello, guys. Well, at a location called GIA. And when I was there studying, I was already in the midst of, back in 2002, I was already in the midst of trying to figure out the gemstones. And it's been a long journey from 2000 to 2003 to 2019, almost 2020. It's a hard topic to cover, but the topic that I've been searching and trying to figure out is what are these actual gemstones in Aaron's breastplate in the book of Exodus. As we go through the Bible, it describes in Ezekiel, in Exodus, in Numbers, it describes in Revelations these topics of gemstones that were translated from Hebrew and Latin and Greek and English and many different languages around the world. And these translations were done before gemological studies had been developed on gemstones. And the original names and of these stones in the Bible were all given to us during a time in history when if something was blue, it was called typically like sapphire. If it was red, it was called ruby. Green, it was called emerald. A lot of these gems just were denoted by color, not by actual gemological study of crystalline structure. So it's been a fun journey. It's a hard topic because there's not a lot of descriptions in the Bible that communicate, what kind of colors these stones were, what their hardness was. It doesn't talk. And when I did this journey, I decided to take it down many different paths. One path I took it down was the gemological path, and I said to myself, I only have the basis of color to be able to identify these gemstones, which is sort of the beginning point that we identify stones as, okay, what kind of stones are these? So we can start narrowing it down. So then I thought, well, maybe I can take it from a Hebraic standpoint. So I studied and continued to study the Hebrew language and looked at the stones in their picture language. So to give you a little bit of a foundation, a Hebrew language has each Hebrew letter is a picture, a number, and there are pictures and numbers and their letters. So because of that, they give you many different deep meanings. So I studied the gemstones, for instance, Pitdah. It's one of the Hebrew words for the gem known as topaz in the Bible. So I looked all over the Bible looking for this gem. And I found in Ezekiel the talk of this gem. There's 9 different gemstones that Satan had, or this created angel that was covering cherub. And it talks about topaz there, or Pitdah. Then I also looked at the book of Exodus communicating about Moses and Aaron's breastplate. And it communicates again that was one of the gems. And I'm looking through these topics we see in Revelations. In the book of Revelations, it communicates about the New Jerusalem. And again, topaz is mentioned. So these gems, they're talked about throughout the Bible. But when I got to the book of Job started communicating about locations, geological locations. And he communicated about this Pitdah being a stone, the precious Pitdah, in Job 28, chapter 28, verse 18. Let's see, verse 19. So as he communicates about these stones, I thought, okay, well, let's sort of look at ancient Cush. So ancient Cush is a location in history, and ancient Cush would have been like Ethiopia. The Red Sea is part of ancient Cush, and like the Arabic areas there, Saudi Arabia. So on both sides of the Red Sea in that sort of general area, just below Egypt, Ethiopia, those kind of locations. We know the children of Israel, so I said, okay, we know Egypt is where the children of Israel were. They were using the Jews as slaves. They were building their pyramids. And there was never a stone called topaz. Today, when we look at these gems that ever came out of that region, topaz is not one of them. There's many different gemstones in Ethiopia, but in the region where Job is communicating about this gem called Pitdah, we've all translated as topaz, that there was an island in the Red Sea. And that island is extremely exciting because it was known as Serpent Island. And the word Pitdah literally means, in the Hebrew, the mouth of the serpent door beheld. So super exciting when you get into these gems and you study about them and you read what their original meaning is in the Hebrew picture language. It literally tells you it's the mouth of the serpent door beheld. Wow, right? And so now there's this island, and this island is called Serpent Island, and it's in Cush, and Job is communicating about this island, and he's talking about this precious stone. And we know topaz wasn't there, so okay, what is this topaz if it's not topaz? So then we see later that on this island, it was a hard to find island. It's a volcanic island. And this Serpent Island became known as Topaz Island. And if we look at topaz, let's see here. Let's go to the next section. So topaz is communicated as like a precious stone or a hard to find gem. And there's many different explanations of how to understand the word topaz, so I'm not going to focus on that as much. You can go study that if you'd like. But it's interesting because it becomes later known as Topaz Island, hard to find island. It's a rock volcanic island. It's called Serpent Island. The Jews leave Egypt and they have this Pitdah stone. It says that they plundered the Egyptians, when they left, and they took all their gems and gold and money and food, and they went out into the wilderness. And now here we see in Exodus that Moses to command Aaron and all the tribes to gather together gems, gold, from what they have to offer to the Lord. And then he communicates for a few people that he instructs to build the artifacts, the breastplate that Aaron wore, cut the stones, build the settings, do all this work. And Pitdah is one of those gems. And so now here they're communicating about this stone, Pitdah, which means Serpent Island. And the Egyptians thought of it as like an emerald by night, because this stone was, yellowy green, and it was light in tone. But at nighttime, because there's not very much light, it still looks more like an emerald. But during the day, it looked more yellowy, washed out green, right? The interesting thing as I studied this island is that later in history, we lose this island called Topaz Island because it becomes known as St. Island. And it's not the St. John that we see that people go cruising to, on cruise ships, but St. John. And it's in the Red Sea. And so this is an interesting island because then later it changes its name again from St. John, which really didn't connect to the gemstones, but it went back to a name that connects to the gemstones by the Arabics. And they eventually name it, in more modern day history, Zabargad. And Zabargad Island now, when we have had explorations on it, we're finding a gem called olivine, or a gem in that family, right? And the gem is actually in the gemological concept here, because we see, hey Zen, we see that Peridote now is a stone that matches the descriptions. It's it's the green, yellowy green gem, and it's at night definitely a light enough stone that it looks more like an emerald. And this stone is super exciting to be thinking about now, because we finally, I talked to a Jewish man one day, and he said, okay, look, if we were to just have one gem, which is the Peridote, truly is this stone we knew as Pitdah. And I think that's super exciting. So the people in Israel, they're at the temple that are recreating the artifacts. They're getting ready to build this new that's being built again. I'm excited to share with them about this, because the stone that was there as topaz is the wrong stone. Peridote is the correct stone, and in every way, this stone connects. So let's go on to a different stone. I apologize. Let's finish this. So Zabargad is in the Arabic language there, actually the word that translates as Peridote. So this is once known as Topaz Island that Job's talking about, that the Bible is translating the word Pitdah, exactly the same word that's used as topaz, but in the breastplate. And now we see in the book of Job the exact same Hebrew word. And then now we see that this island that used to be called Topaz Island or Pitdah is now in Arabic today, Zabargad, which literally means peridot. And now they've named this island during the time of the knowledge of gemstone identification. So really exciting, guys, that we've been able to find one stone. And if that's not enough, as I've been studying through the years, I have found another stone that without a shadow of a doubt, I can guarantee is lapis, or not lapis, that's the stone, but is the actual gemstone that we're trying to uncover. So the stone itself has been translated. It's the it is the 5th gemstone in Aaron's breastplate, and it's the word Saphir. Now it's very close to the word sapphire. So with the word sapphire, we know that they come in many colors. They're the hardest gemstone of all the gems. It's thought that was the shamir stone, which was like the magical worm that could cut stones because it was so hard. But to find a large gem that size to put in Aaron's breastplate. So we're talking about big stones here that we're using in Aaron's breastplate. So the word Saphir, I studied throughout the Word of God to try to find, where the serpent stone or a stone that is found at the mouth of the door where the serpents are, right? So we're seeing in the Hebrew picture language this concept. So let's look at the word Saphir from a Hebraic picture language standpoint. So we have the Psalmic. So let's go back to the word Saphir. And Saphir, we have the Psalmic Pei, Yod, and all of a sudden I can't read my own handwriting, but it's either the Resh or the Lamed. So the Psalmic is, it's like a branch, right? So we're talking about something that holds up in the air, and it's supporting a branch. So imagine that we're looking is the next Hebrew letter. That's the mouth. So the mouth is communicating this, and the hand is the next Hebrew letter. It's the Yod, the hand at work up. It's heavy laden, and it's being spoken out by the mouth of God, and it's being placed by the hand of God. If it's the Lamed here, then that's the authority of God. By his authority, these things are being established, and it's upheld. So if we think about this, and we go through the passages, I looked at the book of Moses, and one of the books of Moses, and in Exodus, he communicates in Exodus 24:10, he communicates about 28. So he communicates about this gemstone, and he says, look, this is a Exodus 24:10, if that's what I said, Exodus 24:10. He communicates about how he's on the mountain of the Lord, God's appeared, and the first layer of heaven is rolled away, right? So he's seeing the feet of God. It looks like bricks of stone, but it looks like bricks of Saphir. And so here we have this night sky, twinkling stars under the feet of the creator of heaven and earth. So that's one area that we see that gem communicated, and it's the word Saphir, right? That is how it describes this. All right, so let's go to and on this one, God just woke me up in the middle of the night. He's like, look, I want you to open it in Job 28:6. And so I opened it up, and there it was. On this gemstone. So Job 22:28. Okay. In the Hebrew, it's the Hebrew word Saphir. So it doesn't actually known to the buzzard as gold dust, right? That the Egyptians used that were in, King Tut and all these different topics where they had kings that wore gemstones that were blue, that had speckles, were a gem from Afghanistan that's been mined for thousands of years over there in the Middle East. And it's Lapis Lazuli. So the second stone we see here, the Saphir stone, I believe without a shadow of a doubt, it's Lapis Lazuli. Lapis is a blue gem that's more like onyx. It's an opaque stone, and it has lazuli inclusions, which are pyrite inclusions, which many people look at them as shiny little pieces of gold fleck in the blue gem. So it looks like gold dust, but it looks like the night sky. One of the tribes of Israel actually has that flag as well, that they travel, that has this, and I'll show you just really quickly. This is picture the gems, but there's just a lot of fun. Thanks for joining us today, guys. And if you have any comments or feedback or any questions, obviously you can leave them. And I look forward until we meet again next time. But let's just go ahead and pray. Father, thank you for to seek, knock,